Nerd morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and I am with Joseph here, and we're going to be talking about Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson that has come out this year.
Such good
right?
book.
It's amazing, and I've already done a couple of videos. We did one where we talked about the first 16 or 17 chapters 18 chapters that were released early, and I've got a link
plus the
the prequel.
So.
Yes. So I've got a link to that, and I'll have that in the description below. Also, I have a spoiler-free version where I talk about the book, and I'll have a link to that. This is a spoiler-filled video, so if you haven't watched it, close out of this, go watch the spoiler-free version,
and read the book.
Read the book, and then come back, because you are going to really, really love this book. Also, I have a other spoiler video where I'm talking about this book myself, and that as well is going to be in the description below to find. So we've got tons of stuff about Rhythm of War. This book has been absolutely huge, and we have so much more to say.
Oh, so much more to say. So.
And if you are a big Brandon Sanderson fan, be sure to click the subscribe button, because I'm going to be doing more book reviews with Brandon Sanderson throughout the year. So 2021 is going to be filled with Brandon Sanderson books and reviews. So we're going to be keeping up with this theme and excitement of all the amazing books, really diving in and talking about some of those elements.
Oh, yes.
So without further ado, let's jump in and let's talk about this. First, let's kind of maybe link back to some of the previous videos that we had on some of the things that we had said.
I was wrong. I made a really wild assumption that the metal that couldn't be cut was harmonium. Well, it's not. Thinking about it, obviously harmonium is only going to be over on Cell, not on Roshar. This is aluminum, which makes so much sense because it's not affected on any of the other worlds by allomantic powers. So, I admit I was wrong on that one.
On a previous video for me, on my last big spoiler review video, I talked about Adolin's blade and how cool it was and all those things that were going on with it. And I said that we didn't know what the blade was, and I had a lot of comments that were super helpful that were like, we do know, it's a cultivation spren. And I was like, oh, how did I miss that and not remember that while I was doing the video? So thank you guys for your comments. I really appreciate those. Be sure to share your thoughts and ideas as well in this video. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if we say something off base, we can
help us out.
Yeah, totally.
We would love to be Sanderson scholars, but you have to eat too, so.
I think one of the other things that we were talking about and discussing is the need for the Cosmere for this book.
Yeah, in our earlier video, you had said you now have to be familiar and have read all of the other Cosmere books. I disagreed. I was like, oh, you can probably still just stay within the Stormlight Archive. I'll revise that statement. You probably still could and totally enjoy the story of just the Stormlight Archive series, but you're going to miss out on some of the juicy little nuggets of things.
Which this book has just a mountain load of little asides and touches into the relationship of the whole Cosmere.
Oh yeah. We don't meet, but we continue interacting with others who now live on Roshar.
Yes. There are some people, particularly from Warbreaker, who are here and living permanently for some reason. And, Kaladin really gets to interact with some of them. And they teach him about the Cosmere. And, there were some really good explanations.
Revealed, and we're like, oh,
so if you didn't know that there were other planets or other things, right now, that's a big part of where we're looking. And particularly with how things are looking in relationship to Odium and the other shard level deities, they are playing a Cosmere-sized
Oh yeah.
like conflict.
Yeah.
And the people on Roshar are there for the ride, there to survive and there to figure out how to handle everything that's going on.
Right.
But they are a small prick in the wave of what's going on up at the level with the divinities.
Oh yeah. The epigraphs at the beginning of the chapters are, a lot of them are conversations between some of these high level deity type personages.
Yeah, like seeing Harmony, and I'm going, that's Harmony.
Right.
I love him, you know,
Right.
and he's the
So
only like divine character that I have a really positive relationship with.
Right.
And so it's just really cool. Like, oh, that's who that is. And then there's these other ones that we're starting to get a little bit more from.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole level is way above all of these little petty mortals, which the story revolves around. And seeing that contrast was really fascinating for this book.
It is. It's what we started out with in Way of Kings of, okay, we can see that there's some higher level stuff. There's a lot of, here's this little tidbit. You'll learn more about it later, was the promise given.
Yeah.
And now is when it's being given. So...
with that, with the relationships with the Cosmere, tons of allusions to other things. There was like Siones in this one. That was really cool and surprising.
Like,
and with that, like, you totally, like, you need Elantris to get the magnitude of
to understand what a Sion is,
Yeah.
and what they do. Bands of Mourning, Wax and Wane are seeing boxes, cubes used to speak distances. Are those Sions also?
Right. Also, they
Probably.
have an object there where it is able to suck away elementic abilities that's used, and we kind of saw something like that here.
The daggers that can suck out Stormlight or other.
And you're just like, okay, what relationship are those? Are these things that have been discovered on other planets? Or being, like, discovered in tandem in different ways on different planets? And some of those things are going to be a little bit tricky to tease out. But there's definitely connections all the way around. Which is just super, super cool. And honestly, that makes this book, and probably the series in the future, really, like, you're going to have to be investing more time reading these other books. Woe is me, they're amazing books. So what a great,
go through them
horrible
all
thing, right?
every year.
Oh, seriously. Yeah, I've read them now multiple times, as if you, and, like, I'm so happy to be, like, getting too close to the new year where I can kind of reset my, and start, yeah, exactly. And that's just awesome. We have a bunch of world hoppers. We've mentioned that there are a couple. The Ghostbloods as well are a totally Cosmere-based group.
Yeah. A secret society bent on their own profit and designs is admitted is the strongest force in all of the Cosmere, according to Maraise. So...
yeah. And that kind of makes me think, okay, will we see clues of them in books that we've seen previously?
Or have we already?
Yeah.
Again, Bands of Mourning, the group that his uncle is involved with.
Are those
another sect of the Ghostbloods?
Yeah.
I think probably.
There are hints and ideas of them being related to this book, because they have I think they was like described as, I don't know if it was devils with red eyes or just creatures with red eyes.
Creatures with red eyes.
And I'm like,
at the very end,
we know that links towards this, and so if there is a strong relationship to that, that's very, very possible.
It's very possible they're the Ghostbloods as well.
Yeah. Or are they playing a game with Odium
It seems like it. Some of the things Odium says in this book definitely is saying, I am trying to affect other worlds. I want to be the only god and in charge of everything.
Right. And for one of the big things and the conflict of this book in the relationship to the divinities is Odium wants out. Odium wants off of Roshar and able to be going to and having influence on these other worlds. And so that is a big, big piece of the big
That's why
game.
He's fighting. Yeah.
And we get to see that very clear here, where they alluded to it, maybe even talked about it in the previous books, but it became very overt and very clear.
It was very clear he is trapped. It's not just this is where he is for some reason, or he's just interested in this right now. He is stuck.
Yeah.
So,
which was interesting.
Yeah.
They have some really big characters here that are returning that we get to explore. People like Kaladin and Adolin and Dalinar, all of those characters.
All of our main ones.
The big ones that were like really new were Eshonai's like backstory stuff with Venli, and Venli's development. This was her story.
Yep.
And then also, of course, Navani. And those were our kind of our big new points of view.
Yeah.
And I thought those were all amazing stories and amazing explorations.
Oh, yeah. We for sure have 3 major storylines kind of going through this book. Kaladin's, of course, but his is tied very closely to Navani's. Shallan is in Shadesmar with Adolin. And then Dalinar is off fighting the war.
Yes.
So...
And, with all of those things, we have Venli, who is onto the, backside of this, where, they're talking about the war front and dealing the things with Dalinar, and then they shift over and do this raid, and she's on this other side of the coin with the story with Navani and Kaladin. And I thought her character was really fascinating, but we don't really see a huge amount of growth until the end. She's kind of set up in this position of you have to make this decision, and she's just simply resisting that until she chooses not to resist. And so I think if this was solely her story, I think I would have probably felt like it was lacking a little bit. But because we have all of her backstory and all of Eshonai's backstory, we see where she's coming from in a way new way. And it really makes it so now Venli is not just a character that is on the extra intermediary little bits of story, but is a character now that I'm a key character now.
We're gonna see her a lot more going forward. With very important storyline, I'm sure. I thought as the flashbacks go, a lot of it was stuff that we'd kind of known already, knew it,
but really just kind of fleshed it out.
It did,
which was cool.
We kind of got that Venli had been working with the Void Spren to create the storm forms and start the Everstorm, but to see how that progressed and how she was manipulated and coaxed into starting the Everstorm without any understanding that it was to sacrifice all of her people. That was the point. Was to sacrifice all of her people to bring back all of the Voidbringers, as we've termed them before, the Fused, as we know them now. So... And
with that, her people essentially disappear, which makes a good, strong moment when she finds out that she is not the last one. That first she meets up with R'lain. And that was a big moment. And then when her and R'lain find that there is a small tribe of her people,
the survivors, those at the end of Words of Radiance, where Eshonai lets some of the people go who didn't want to participate, didn't want to change into storm form. The temptation there was to, we have to kill them all. They're rebelling and stuff. But Eshonai had enough of herself left. She let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And now we find that they survived.
Yeah.
And apparently have teamed up with the Chasm Fiends, which seems like that'll be a lot of fun.
Right? I would want to read that story. You know? That's cool.
Come on, number 5.
Right? With Venli and Eshonai, my favorite moment for the Eshonai story thing was actually from the point of view of Stormfather. At the end,
yes.
Because we build up Eshonai's character so much, but she's dead.
Especially
she's
in
gone.
Words of Radiance.
And we've had a lot of this build with this character, and with this book, she's still being talked about, but she's gone. And they give her this beautiful moment where she's like, I just wanted to explore the world and do good, and my life has completely crumbled, and the Stormfather
lets her ride with the storm.
And it's
so
beautiful. I thought it was a great moment.
Yes.
And yeah, so those are those two major like backstory experiences and stuff with Venli.
Navani. I liked Navani before. It was kind of fun in Way of Kings where she's trying to seduce Dalinar.
That was enjoyable, yeah.
Dude, she got the hots for you. Come on, we could see that, and then their progression through their relationship. We kind of see now her feelings, especially how her husband Gavilar was treating her at the end of his life. I wouldn't have liked him either.
No. And I think it's really interesting, and I want to delve into mental illness and some of the different issues with mental illness that they talk about with this book, future, but just specifically with Navani, she has this box that she's put herself in, and it's because of the abusive relationships that she's been around, and she's like, I'm not an inventor.
Right.
I'm
not a scholar. I don't know how to do things.
And she put herself in these boxes. This is, I can't do this stuff. And she only felt like she was able to be someone who just financed, who supported
and motivated.
Which, I mean, a patron is a great place to be. And that's an amazing skill in order to identify greatness and make greatness grow. And she felt like that was what she could do. But I think that I know some people when they go to school and their teacher says, you're really bad at math. And so they suddenly believe I'm bad at math. And they suddenly are not able to grow and excel from that. And they have this box placed. And I don't know, we have these type of formidable experiences that we have to try to be able to break out of, and that's part of healthy development and overcoming some of the scars that we have. And with her husband and those types of things like that, it seemed like he told her you aren't this. And so she believed it. And this was a story where she got to break that box and discover herself in a way she never had previously.
I can do these things.
Yes.
And that was a great moment. She broke through. She discovered she can follow the scientific method, create theories, test them, find answers. She created 2 or 3 different kinds of stormlight or I guess not stormlight, but invested spheres of energy. Yeah.
And that's really big.
She did that. She had some help and encouragement from Raboniel, but she is the one who took the tools and the ideas and the theories and applied them. Raboniel had been trying to do that for 3,000 years.
Right. And she did it in a week.
A week?
Yeah.
So, yeah, she really reached into herself and did that. And it was after that she had the realization, I can be a scholar because I did this.
Yeah.
It was fun to see her go through that.
And like with that, like she does some pretty amazing developments previously that she never really gave herself credit for.
Yeah.
Because like part of invention is let me take this piece here and this piece here, put it together and get something new. And she was doing that all the time, and she had obviously teams that were going and figuring out how it all worked,
all the details.
but she was doing it and was a big part of it and never gave herself credit. And that was just a really cool and satisfying thing for me as a reader to see and see her break through, because I think everyone to some degree can relate to having those walls put up and needing to be able to try to overcome and break through those.
Totally.
Other characters that were really, really big and cool, as you talked about, was Raboniel. Just touching on her really quick, is she was fascinating because her goals were not like most of the other fused.
No.
And I thought that was really interesting because we essentially saw one of these like damned evil fused who was very relatable and even likable. And in some ways also very heroic to the people we wanted to see win. And that made her very redeemable and very intriguing, particularly with her paradigm.
Yeah. I want to end this war. Cool. I'm not going to promote just killing everyone.
Yeah.
Cool. It was an interesting growth.
Yeah. And so, like, obviously for her, she was like, I'm trying to discover the silver bullet. I want to have something so a side has a overwhelming power over the other because I have lived forever and it sucks. Is essentially like her motivation.
That was it.
And being able to see something that was able to kill these reincarnationed beings for good, for her was an amazing discovery. And that was something that would kill Spren and infused
it killed
people.
For that one. It killed it killed the fused whose souls could be taken and cycled back through. So it either destroyed the soul or destroyed the connection to the rebirth.
Yes.
And so broke that pattern. So fused are now dead 100% permanently. But then she takes it and makes the other side to kill Spren.
Yes.
Radiant Spren, specifically.
Which had some big ramifications, particularly when we connected that with the scenes with Teft and Moash.
Oh, sadness.
I know.
My first fear was he was going to go and kill Syl. I was like,
I know.
You kill Syl, I'm going to climb into those pages and do what Kaladin can't.
Seriously.
Yes.
I was so scared when they were like, we can kill Spren now.
Kill Spren.
I was terrified because I don't know, like, why do I care more about that than just like regularly killing people? But that seemed so final and so like such a great loss to the world and the Cosmere is killing a Spren, and that just seemed very dire.
To dive into some of the spiritual side of it, if you kill a human, as we see in the Mistborn books, those spirits do go on to someplace else. But a Spren is purely a conscious manifestation of an idea, of a little bit of energy. There is no soul to that unless you call them a soul, but then you're destroying the soul. So it's an end. It's a permanent end. And we didn't know Teft's Spren very much, but I was still sad when she got killed.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
No!
And then, of course, that led to Moash not only being able to kill that Spren, but also Teft. And
Teft was so shocked. It was easy, and we lost Teft. And holy cow, he was like the rock for Kaladin at the beginning.
Yes, and honestly, he was consistently that role throughout the books.
Yeah.
And for Kaladin being at such a dramatically low place in this book,
Yeah.
when Teft was like, all right, sign me up, I'm with you.
Right.
Like, it was just, like, you could feel
You can
in the
feel
pages.
Kaladin. You can just like, oh,
right?
I really want you to go and do your own thing, but thank you for staying.
Yes.
You felt that. You felt Kaladin's...
It was so big.
relief.
And then to have that taken away, Moash knew this could be the turning point for him.
That's why he did it.
Yes.
That is why he did it, was so he can burn all of his bridges. If you don't call that evil, I don't know what is.
Yes.
That is...
And with him having his partnership with Odium to say, yeah, let's give him some nightmares. Let make him live some of his worst experiences over again.
How can we destroy my best friend and
Yeah.
prove that I'm right? I mean,
yes. So sad. And I think
mean.
like Moash was very nigh to irredeemable before this, but when he took out Teft, it's just like no more. We had this character that we could have loved, who had such great potential, who no longer has that.
Brandon, please let him be killed in book number 5. I don't want him around through number 10, okay? Please.
It's such a good negative arc.
It is
It's such a good negative arc. And I like, what great depths could he yet go? And that's a horrible thought, but as his first storyteller,
talking about amazing stories, yes. That has great potential.
There's some stuff there. I know. So we've kind of slid into a little bit of Kaladin.
Yeah.
Let's talk Kaladin here.
Okay. Kaladin starts out as himself. He helps free his village. He's starting to recognize in himself that he's just worn out, spread thin. He's had so much negativity around, and he can't fully let it go. We've seen that in the previous books also. He can't let it go. There's some things he just can't accept. Normal and okay, especially when we start talking, as they term it here, battle shock. Our modern term for it is PTSD. So,
but on top of simply just PTSD, which he would certainly have, with him, particularly with the earlier, like his flashbacks and stuff like that, it's, I think, comfortably confirmable that he also just suffers from clinical depression.
Yeah.
And
I think it even talks about that in this book.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
And there are no terms for this in this world.
Yeah. They haven't gotten there psychologically yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they had a asylums right now, where you put people who had
asylums,
lock mental them away. Illness. And that to me was interesting because that is parallel to real world scenarios.
Yeah, that's what I went through.
And we had fortunately been able to grow past that, where now like mental health is part of health. And if someone is struggling with something that's mental health related, that's no different than someone having a chronic illness. And it's something you can deal with, something you can live with, and something you don't necessarily need to be ashamed of. And I think that's a tremendously powerful and important message that this book really talks about.
Yeah. When Kaladin starts finding great peace in helping others with battle shock, that was fulfilling in itself to see, oh, Kaladin, we love you. You're an amazing warrior. You try and protect people. You're the good guy. We root for you. For him to find another way to serve and build others up, that was satisfying in itself. If that was the rest of the book, I would probably still be satisfied with Kaladin as a character.
Yes.
So,
and with that and his dimension there, like we had him, war hero, lots of objectives that way. And when he was like, obviously, I'm going to go and be a healer.
Yeah.
Like that to me was one of the lowest moments because he essentially had to give up on like, I don't know if you could say his dreams or anything, but he succumbed.
People.
Yeah. But he succumbed to something that he felt like wasn't his calling. And for me, I felt, that's such a sad moment. And it felt super sad.
Yeah.
But when he did that and he started going with the flow, he started to discover his place in that world.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily bandaging somebody's arm. It was healing something completely different.
Yes.
And he was able to discover that. And that made this thing that was initially, I felt like a very big low, and he was able to make it a high.
He turned it around and recognized a need. He had the need himself. He could see it in others. So he started bringing together those to help them. And that was fulfilling in itself.
Yeah, I thought that was, as a microcosmic story in this greater story, a beautiful story. Yeah. That was really well done.
Oh, yes. Of course, when he comes back at the end and is kicking trash, that's good too.
Yeah, so we talked with Teft and Moash. He has this moment. He goes to an extremely strong, horrible, low place and essentially attempts suicide. And...
Kaladin seeing Teft dead basically breaks him. His father is taken and purposefully and not purposefully is thrown off of the Tower of Urithiru.
Yeah.
So Kaladin says, oh, well, that's crap. Bye.
Yeah. Because when he jumps, he's not, I'm going to heroically go and rescue my father. Yep. He's going there with that intent partially there, but really that's a small voice.
It's very small.
Where the other is, I just should give up.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have the vision, and we have some, I thought personally a really beautiful moment. Some people I've heard and read that they've thought, maybe that was a kind of a cheaper way to get him to get that rise. I thought it was lovely. I thought it was really good. I thought it was
fine. Yeah, it wasn't a cheap way to raise Kaladin's ideal so he could become the 4th level Radiant. It was something Kaladin already had the strength and the capacity to do. He just needed the time that he needed to work through it mentally. The process and that story, the concepts were already being built with Kaladin helping the other battle-shocked people, that he just needed those moments that the Stormfather gave him to actually work through it himself. And once he did, then he could raise in the ideals of the Radiance, which fits perfectly, especially in his own mental illness journey.
Yes.
I didn't think it was contrived at all.
Yeah. I felt, to me, like, I got choked up. I totally got choked up. It was, for me, it was beautiful. It really, really landed for me. Yeah. I was very, very satisfied with it. Well, he comes back, and he is a total boss.
Right? It's Kaladin at the end of Way of Kings, where he's fighting and protecting all of his soldiers and rescuing Dalinar. Best literary action scene ever.
Yeah.
Really? It's him there again now with Shard Plate, and you're just like, you people are in trouble.
and like with that, it totally turns the tide.
Yep.
And I mean, they've pretty much been in a situation where they've been in like a city-state that's being controlled by the enemy.
Occupied by the enemy, yeah.
And they all run for the hills because of him, which is so satisfying.
Oh, and I love, even true to himself, of, if you're not going to fight me, good. Take your stuff and leave. If you're not going to do that,
strap in, we're gonna go.
Have trouble here.
And like,
so,
I thought it was cool with that as well. Venli, like I said, she's offered this choice to make that growth,
yep.
and she's like not really doing it. And seeing Kaladin raise up, particularly since
Yep.
she knew and understood the low that he was experiencing,
Yep.
because she understood the relationship with Moash and that to some
Yep.
degree.
Yep.
And as an observer on the outside, that gave her the strength to step up and do the scary, hard thing for her.
Yeah.
And I love that someone being brave and doing something hard encourage someone else to be brave and do something hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true to form.
Yep.
And real life.
Yeah. We see that's the best of social media right now are those encouraging things, not just cat videos and watching people crash and burn. They might be funny for a moment, but those that work to help others and inspire others, that's the best of social media right now.
Totally.
It is.
And with literature, that is an amazing piece of what literature can offer.
Yes.
And whatever form that is, being comics, which I talk about, explore a lot in, and novel form, like fantasy is an amazing place to find inspiration.
It's
to
a wonderful
be buoyed up.
springboard because you can talk about anything in fantasy.
Yes.
You can,
Yes. And so they're exploring some really cool things with this in this book.
Yes.
Moving forward with some of these other characters, Dalinar's role was relatively small.
Pretty small, yeah. It's Yasna's journey and progression as being a Knight Radiant and her position there, as well as being queen. It was a little bit more in the forefront, but Dalinar's role of trying to lead the coalition and doing what he can to fight the war, but not destroy the world at the same time. That's kind of what he's shooting for.
With him, his big thing was, I need to grow as a Radiant. And him having that discovery and starting to explore some of the ways that he can operate. And that was cool. And that was the thing that was needed in order to enable Kaladin. And there was a lot of cool abilities that he seems to have that we're only now starting to see.
We're scratching the surface. He even made some mistakes. He even hurt the Stormfather. He didn't know what he was doing, and that's true to form for so many new people learning to do things, especially if you don't have a teacher.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes, and some of them bad ones. It fit.
Totally. Obviously, that mistakes and things that humans are able to make some Spren a little hesitant to bond. And that, I think, just really connects with Shallan's and Adolin's story.
Yep.
Fascinating. I love Shadesmar and the cognitive realm. Like, just some really cool stuff there. I think the first time I dove into the Cosmere, I was kind of like, wait, that's not how these stories go. We're, knights and swords and magic, and now we're different. And it, for me, threw me a little bit for a loop. I took a moment to, as a reader, to get used to. Going into Shadesmar this time, I was like, yes, I'm
do it.
all in. And I was really, really excited when they set up that as a narrative point. We need to have a envoy to go and talk to the Honor Spren.
Yep.
That was super cool.
Adolin's mission, convince the Honor Spren, we need more of you to come help make more Windrunners. We need people to fight. We need to defend our people. And most of the Honor Spren fell prey to bureaucratic politicians.
Right?
And
I was imagining this to kind of be more like cryptic behavior.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And this was we were talking a little bit earlier and you said these are Honor Spren without honor.
Yeah. That's totally how I see it. you said before, but I have a podcast where I talk about personal development and growth. And
check it out, guys. It's awesome. Link in the description.
Thanks. One of the things I've mentioned before is, what's honor, what's integrity. And the name of the city is Lasting Integrity.
Yeah.
But honor, as I define it, and I've heard it defined also, honor is being honest with others. And they weren't truly being honest with Adolin. Yes, on the surface, but really deep down they weren't. They didn't have the integrity, which is being honest with yourself.
Yes.
The honor spren were saying they were honorable and doing things that honor would have them do and protecting themselves and stuff, but they were so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
They were willing to bend and break their own honor to continue to say, you're bad, we don't want you.
Yeah. And I felt like with honor and like honor being dead, like that obviously maybe makes it so they are a little bit more confused or things like that.
Maybe,
but
sure.
when there's the bond, like particularly as we see with Kaladin and Syl, he has a lot of things about how is what I'm doing against them honorable when I do this. And like they explore this concept, and for Kaladin and Syl at least, it's to being true to that inner conscience.
Yeah.
And if they're doing that, then they're good.
Right.
And that is not at all how the honor spren were operating for themselves.
No.
And in that way, it's like, I think one of the most healing and helpful things that the honor spren are going to be able to do for their society is to bond with humans and learn that again.
Right? Have that mix. That's totally what all of the bonding with spren does in all of our bonds so far. They help each other grow and build up, especially Lift and Lyndall. Love Lift.
Voidbringer.
I wish we had seen more Lift.
Yes, that was book. One of my regrets is she just didn't have a big role.
She didn't have a big role. She had some important roles.
Other people take the spotlight, and that's necessary.
It is, but I love Lift. She's so funny.
Oh, man. Totally, though. And seeing her, she embodies this, like, innocence.
Yeah.
And she tries so hard to be this rebel and to steal and do all these other things. But even, like, at the height of her, like, theftness, like, she just embodies innocence.
Yes.
And so seeing her caged, seeing her tortured, seeing her suffer was really hard, I thought, as a reader, because she is so innocent, and you don't want innocence to be broken, you know?
Yeah.
But
quick side note on Lift, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard at literature besides Shard Fork. An edge dancer. I love that. Okay. We're back on topic now, but I love that part.
Right? It's such a good character, and I hope that we get to more for her as a character in book 5 in 2 or 3 or however many years. Hopefully 1 year next year. Right. So Szeth had an interesting role in this book.
Yes.
Fascinating character. Honestly, I was expecting him to have a little bit more of a social growth before he decided to go off on his next ideal quest.
Yeah.
Because he has a lot of social growing to do. And maybe he doesn't grow that way. Maybe he's going to grow in a different way. And that's okay for a character. But I was expecting him to being forced to interact. Being forced to do that. And we got, I feel like, cut short.
A little bit. But I can also see why he was left that way. He did kill half of all of the monarchs and lots of other people.
I mean, whether or not he is malicious, he is a serial killer, and people are going to see him that way.
It would be too hard for them to not.
Yeah.
And that's just going to ostracize him by itself.
Yeah.
So
and he will maybe be a very, very interesting Lone Ranger kind of a character in the future. I don't know. I'm really interested to see how he'll grow.
Yes.
I think that we've had him since the very, very first page.
Right after the prologue. But
right. But from the very, very beginning, he's been a character that we've had on tabs, and he has had some scenes and some bigger moments, but he's never been, I would say, a major character.
No,
he's not been, he's been associated with major characters. He's been a good secondary character throughout the entire series, and I'm thinking we're going to be opening him up a lot more in the next book or the book after.
I was wondering if it's going to be book 5 will be his book where we get his version of killing Gavilar, his version of being made truthless and his past. In fact, I really believe that we're going to get that in book 5 because it seems he's going to Shinovar, back to his people.
Which will be cool because, again, we've talked about Shinovar for so long and we haven't really got there yet. And with Zeth, like, he is a tremendously powerful, tremendously gifted individual. And he, as we learned at the end, which we'll explore a little bit later, he has a god killer weapon, which is a big thing for him to still possess.
Yes. Especially Nightblood. Because Nightblood, we love you, but you're weird.
Yes. And he's right now looks like Nightblood is the most powerful object in all of
the Cosmere.
And that's what that links back to are the moments where we see some world hoppers and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm looking for a bounty. And like, oh, who is your bounty? It's that blade.
The blade.
And that's the thing that's being hunted for. And now you kind of go, oh, I can see why.
Who wants the blade?
Yeah.
Viviana, she knew Nightblood from before. Mm-hmm. So she knows what she's looking for. Who wants the sword?
Yeah. We'll see how that all connects.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated.
We kind of got away from Shallan and Adolin.
Yes. So. Let's go back to those guys, particularly with Shallan. Like, her growth, her experience was super, super interesting.
I've loved Shallan from the beginning. Oh, well, I'll admit, in Way of Kings, I was way more interested in Kaladin. The first time I went through it, I'm like, go back to him. He's way interesting. But to see Shallan's growth, and especially now that we learn a lot more that she did kill her spren before. She was a kid. We still don't know the full story, but she did use the shard blade to kill her mother. It seems to me like she was trying to kill her daughter and self-defense, but a kid isn't going to really recognize that.
Yeah.
So she killed a spren, turns out to be a major point against Adolin later on, but she also develops multiple personalities intentionally to keep from having to think about those past experiences, which just doesn't seem healthy, and it's really weird. Her relationship with Adolin is based on which personality is dominant at the time.
Major props for Adolin,
right?
To roll with that.
Yeah, like, oh, you're radiant right now. Okay, you want to fight? Vale? Okay, let's go drink.
Yeah.
So,
like at that, in the beginning, we were like at this like seedy bar, like as seedy as you can get in that place. But they're there, and he knows everybody. All the workers.
He's like he's like the ideal leader, Light Eyes.
Yeah.
In a bar that's mostly Dark Eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows the name of the waiting staff and stuff.
Yeah.
That's like,
honestly,
I want to serve under you.
Yeah, honestly, right? Major props. He had one big failing that he owns and doesn't feel too bad about. Neither do I. And
no one does.
But like, even with that, he's like, all right, I should not be the ruler of our country. Right. Let me be a high prince, and I'm going to be happy with that, which is also interesting because he's not power hungry. No. And even with everything that he's done, like, that's not been his motivations. No. And he's always been I think an honorable person. Yes. And we've seen him, I think really grow with that. He
has grown very much into what Dalinar wishes he would have been. Yes. Adolin kind of feels like he's not, and he can't live up to his father. But in truth, and Dalinar would probably also say it, he's a much better man than Dalinar was.
And I think that's why Dalinar was so sad when he assassinated the previous High Prince. Is because
killing Sadeas, technically he started the fight, but
totally, but like Dalinar is like I'm disappointed in this, and there's a schism between those two individuals because of that still through this book. But even with that, and considering that, I think Dalinar, he's being the person Dalinar wishes he could be.
Oh yeah, totally.
Going farther into this, let's talk about Taravangian.
Oh, just kill him and make him die.
That was awesome! Oh, it blew my mind!
It blew my mind too, but just kill him and make him die.
Oh my goodness. So this was fascinating just because cultivation is a deity who's been very off to the side this whole story so far.
She seems to be the smartest of all of the shards.
Yes. Her objective is essentially to make things grow, right? So she seems to be in that regard like on the side of life, which is good. Yeah. Because people are living, and that's a relationship that they share. Uh-huh. But she also wants to help other things grow, like people into gods, apparently.
Or something like that.
And she has been playing with a couple of key characters, 3 that we know of, and they, like, if the one person that we know of is now a divinity, what's the fate that she has planned
what does she for the next for 2? Lift?
With Lift and with Dalinar. Like, Dalinar, total 180, essentially him changing. Cultivation is somewhat responsible to
from the ideal champion for odium
to a hero for honor. Yeah. And with that, opened the door for Knights Radiant and other things. She was not the cause of Knights Radiant, but she wanted to make sure
she paved the way
that they were able to be unified and other things like that. So she's playing a different game.
A long game, a different game. We don't know her motivations fully yet. Yeah. But what is she thinking? Taravangian? He just needs to die.
Is just as she had essentially, in a way, groomed Dalinar. Yeah. She had been grooming Taravangian
to become odium. And, we should fill this one out in case someone didn't take our advice and go read the book before watching. Yeah. Taravangian figures out his last moment of brilliance that Nightblood could probably, because he sucks in investiture, he eats investiture when he's drawn, he could probably eat enough of it to harm a deity. So he tries to just flat out tell Szeth, give the sword to Dalinar to kill Odium. Well, Szeth eventually goes to try. Well, he does kill Taravangian, but before he actually dies, he takes the sword and kills Race, who is Odium. So the consciousness, the being who holds the power of Odium, died, and then it needed a host, so the power took Taravangian, and so now Taravangian is the new Odium. Ugh.
Fascinating, because he is going to have different objectives, but he does not want anyone to know about this transition.
No.
He had an opportunity to tell the world when he met up with Hoyd, also Wit, and that last scene was so interesting.
Very interesting. Here's our last world hopping thing. Wit, because he's lived so long, has been storing his long-term memory in breath, which is the form of investiture in Warbreaker, and Taravangian as Odium found it.
And we don't know if it was just a little bit of memory, just so he could replay that scene for his own objectives, or if this is going to catastrophically affect who Wit is. And one redeeming moment I have was the honestly kind of frightening parallel scene with him as he essentially thinks he's going back in time and plays out that whole experience a second time. He plays out those sentences, the jokes, all in tandem. And so I'm like, okay, maybe he didn't lose too much, but we don't know what the real cost was for him.
We know he's below, I believe it's the 3rd heightening of perfect pitch.
Yes.
Compared to the number of breaths he did have,
which was probably astronomical.
A lot of breath.
Yes. And that's, I think, scary because Wit has a big role to play.
Yeah.
And he also is among the ranks of the gods.
Yep.
He knew them.
Yep.
And he also, we learn in this, he had the opportunity to be a shard
he could
deity,
have been one of the 16.
and he chose to live a different way. And it's like, why? What's his story? We've been exploring that for now, 16 books or something like that, like in a huge amount of all of this Cosmere stories.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Now we need Dragonsteel.
Right.
That one's a long way off.
Right. Right.
Yes. That one's a wait and see. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
Big moment there. That will probably have ramifications for the other books.
For all of the rest of the Cosmere.
And I would say if there is a key star of the Cosmere, it is Hoyd.
It is totally Hoyd.
And he is either the villain or the hero of this story. And whatever it is, he had a big moment in his story right there.
Oh, yes.
We have talked for a while. We've touched, again, only a couple of things in this massive, massive book. Other things that you want to add here?
Just final thoughts of, you really should be familiar with the entire Cosmere to really get the most out of the Cosmere books. I would still agree with Brandon Sanderson's previous statements that you could read a single story or a single series and be okay, but a lot of the fun of the Cosmere books is to see a little nugget here and a little nugget there, to find parallels such as the world hoppers, the different clues for who might be from which other world, the different forms of investiture kind of flowing around. Where is Kelsier in all of this? I kind of wonder if Kelsier's
he
not
here?
involved in this one a little
Is
bit.
he here? I want to know.
Right?
Is he here?
And you need to have that broader. So, final thoughts. If you've only been doing Stormlight so far, it's time to branch out and really absorb these other books.
You will only think the experience. It's so worthwhile.
It is. When Jeremy started reading, I had been reading also, and I had already found Hoyd as a crossover character and started putting the pieces together myself. One of the most satisfying experiences in all of literature.
Totally.
It was so great.
Totally.
I'm like, Jeremy, have you found Hoyd?
Yes. It was something to look forward to and to hunt for. And for me, I personally love big stories. That's why I think I gravitate towards Sanderson and all of the books that he has done because of that Wheel of Time. I love that because it's just so massive. And also, like, I love, like, characters like Batman and these different comic book characters because, again, their worlds are just so big.
So many good stories.
This series is becoming more and more important to have the Cosmere. And like you said, maybe not essential, but honestly, there's probably a good portion of this book that makes most sense if you have that.
Yes.
Cool.
So,
well, thank you, Joseph, for joining.
Pleasure.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This is a bigger video, and we just have had so much. If you guys have other thoughts or comments about this book, about the Cosmere, Brandon Sanderson, or anything else, drop them in the comments below. Would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.